If you're a fan of Notre Dame football or even watched college football in the 2000s, you will know the name Jimmy Clausen very well. Coming out of high school, he was one of the best quarterback prospects of all time and is ranked as one of the highest rated recruits of all time as well. Clausen received a near perfect grade according to 24/7 Sports recruiting score and is a top 50 prospect of all time. He had all the talent in the world and seemed like a for sure future NFL quarterback and a potential star, and even had Mel Kiper Jr. putting his job on the line if Clausen didn't turn out to be a good quarterback. But fast forward to 2019 and Jimmy Clausen's name is nowhere to be found on an NFL roster. So what happened to Jimmy Clausen, and why did his career not go as planned? In today's video, we'll be looking back at the career of Jimmy Clausen and what led to his downfall. Clausen came from a family of football greats, which pushed him onto the radar quickly. By the time he was a freshman in high school, his two brothers had already started playing football at the University of Tennessee, and Jimmy was expected to be the next up. Coming out of Oaks Christian School in West Lakes, California, Jimmy Clausen had a phenomenal high school career. Clausen never lost a football game he started in his prep career, going 42-0, and he threw for over 10,000 yards in his career at Oaks Christian. He would receive honors for the best football player in the nation in 2006 and received high praise coming out of high school, where people touted him as a once-in-a-decade type of quarterback. Jimmy had offers from everywhere, but he ultimately decided to go to Notre Dame. After his senior season in high school, he had surgery on his elbow, which would be the start of an unlucky college career. His freshman year was very shaky, as he would be in a battle with both consistency and the starting job. He would start 6 of the team's first 7 games that season, but the Irish just weren't that good and he struggled a lot. Leading up to the game against rival USC, he was benched and then would sit out the next 2 games following before finally being named as the starting quarterback for the game against Air Force. He completed just 56% of his passes and threw 7 touchdowns to 6 interceptions in what was a disappointing first season. That Irish team really wasn't the most talented, and Clausen's season wasn't all his fault, as he was sacked a total of 34 times, but he still didn't play up to the level that many thought he would. His sophomore year would be a lot more successful than his previous one, and Jimmy would throw for 25 touchdowns and 17 interceptions and saw his efficiency jump up 29 points. Notre Dame did well that season and finished with a 7-6 record, and Clausen was a huge part of their success as the Irish finally won their first bowl game after losing 9 bowl games in a row. He threw for 5 touchdowns in the bowl game win and was named co-MVP along with wide receiver Golden Tate. His junior season was where everything was finally put together, and Clausen threw 28 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions and once again saw his efficiency go up. But yet, Notre Dame just wasn't that great, and as a result, head coach Charlie Weis was fired. The quarterback class wasn't that talented heading into the 2010 draft, but it did have a lot of big names, which included Oklahoma quarterback Sam Bradford and Florida's Tim Tebow, and Clausen was just among those names. Now, every draft has a guy who was supposed to go high, and for one reason or another, they ended up falling, and in this draft class, it was Jimmy. He fell all the way to the second round to the Carolina Panthers, a team looking for a replacement for Jake Delhomme. There's no real reason why he fell, and it was a huge shock to many, but it looks like a lot of the teams just had other needs, and Clausen wasn't a target for the teams who wanted or needed a quarterback. A few analysts also attributed his slide to his cocky attitude, but that really hasn't stopped teams from taking guys who had similar attitude issues. Unfortunately, Jimmy would be joining a Panthers team that would end up being the worst in the NFL the following season. He would start the season on the bench behind Matt Moore, and the plan was for Moore to be the starter and have Clausen sit with no rush to start and plenty of opportunity to learn. But he quickly made his debut as Moore suffered a concussion against the Giants in week 1. He threw for 59 yards, had an interception and a fumble snap in that same loss to the Giants. Jimmy would start the following week against the Bengals and put in a decent performance, but once again the fumbling issues continued, as this time he fumbled the ball 3 times. In that game, he was also caught on camera having a bust up with wide receiver Steve Smith. His rookie season was a big disappointment, and after just 3 NFL starts and being pulled in week 5, Clausen was benched after completing 47% of his passes with 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. Clausen also fumbled 7 times, losing 2 of them, and had a 52.2 passer rating. He finished that 2010 season with a 52.5 completion percentage, throwing for 1,558 yards with 3 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He was sacked 33 times and fumbled the ball 9 times this season. The Panthers saw that Clausen wasn't the answer and quickly moved on and selected Cam Newton with the first pick in the 2011 NFL Draft. With a little competition, Clausen failed to step up and was much of the same in preseason, and as a result, Cam Newton won the starting job over Jimmy. Jimmy didn't feature at all in the 2011 and 2012 seasons and was released by the Panthers in 2013 after he had an injury. Clausen would then sign a contract with the Bears to be their backup quarterback. In the late season matchup with the Lions, Clausen was named the starting quarterback. He put in a decent outing where he threw for 177 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. But after Clausen suffered a concussion, Jay Cutler would take back his starting job. With his good backup service, Clausen was brought back for another season. In the third game of the season, he earned the starting job in a game against the Seattle Seahawks. But it would be a new low for Jimmy in one of his last few opportunities, as he threw for a total of 63 yards as the Bears lost 26-0. He would be released later on in the season and was claimed by the Baltimore Ravens the next day. On December 13, 2015, Clausen once again faced the Seattle Seahawks, replacing the injured Matt Schaub, who was in turn replacing the injured Joe Flacco. With another opportunity against the Seahawks, Jimmy completed 23 of 40 passes for 274 yards, but no touchdowns and 1 interception in a 35-6 loss. He also started in a late season game against the Kansas City Chiefs, where he completed 26 of 45 passes for 281 yards with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, but this time it would come in a 34-14 loss. Clausen was then benched for quarterback Ryan Mallett, who led the Ravens to a 20-17 upset win over the rival Pittsburgh Steelers the following week. And that would be the end of Jimmy Clausen's NFL career, and to this day, he hasn't been picked up by another team. Today, Clausen is doing a lot of different things. He joined the Professional Flag Football League along with guys like Chad Johnson, Terrell Owens, and Michael Vick, and did some work with Notre Dame in broadcasting. He has also worked with quarterback prospects, including Baker Mayfield, in preparation for the NFL Draft. Clausen seems to be doing well for himself now and appears to be happy, out of the headlines and out of trouble. But what exactly led to his downfall? As stated earlier, Clausen had surgery on his elbow. Coincidentally, his accuracy took a hit and his once labeled golden arm by Sports Illustrated didn't look so golden after all. His accuracy was a huge reason as to why he was never actually able to take off, as during his college career, he averaged a 59% completion percentage during his first 2 seasons, and then finished his NFL career averaging a 54% completion percentage. It was also brought to my attention just how old Jimmy was in comparison to his competition. During Clausen's senior season, and by the time he graduated early, he was 19 years old and entered his freshman season at Notre Dame at 20 years old. Now maybe that may not seem like a big deal to anyone, but any type of age difference that's significant is huge. I mean, for reference, I was a sophomore in college at 19 years old, so Clausen was well above his competition. Many people reason his age is the reason for why his success came so early, and once he got to the college and the NFL level, where he was playing with elite prospects around his age or even older, he didn't stand out as much as before. He could never truly elevate his teams to the next level, despite being a part of Notre Dame teams with a good amount of potential and weapons on offense, playing with guys like Golden Tate and Michael Floyd. Still, he was never on the right team at the right time. Despite the fact that Notre Dame had tons of offensive weapons, he was a part of a mediocre era of Notre Dame football and was also a part of the worst Carolina Panthers team ever, and then could never recover from there. People also took note of how his confidence took a hit after those rough seasons at Notre Dame and with the Panthers, and once things got rough, he was done. He no longer had pocket presence and he was just never the same. He also just never improved from the time he got to the NFL until the time he got out, and taking care of the ball plagued his career. Consistently, he either fumbled the ball or just made bad reads and threw bad passes. For a guy who was touted as being able to read and pick apart pro defenses, he absolutely struggled at doing so at the next level. One of the biggest reasons for his decline was just his attitude. It was a problem before he was drafted, and many scouts took note of it, and when he was in the NFL, it became more noticed. As stated before, he had that incident with Steve Smith, and it was reported that Smith just couldn't stand Clausen only a few games into his career, and although Smith said the reports weren't true, the camera saw what the camera saw. His attitude not only towards teammates, but towards the game itself was also noted as well. People saw a kid who peaked in high school, became cocky, and made zero effort to improve himself, even though he had all of the talent in the world to do so. But we can all speculate on why he failed, and a lot of it may be pure facts or pure opinion and speculation. But at the end of the day, Jimmy Clausen's career just didn't go as planned. Some of it may be his fault, some of it may be just a bad opportunity, but at the end of the day, it just didn't work out. Clausen seems to be doing just fine for himself though, and that is all that really matters. This has been a video on what happened to Jimmy Clausen. Thank you guys so much for watching, subscribe if you're new, and as always, I will see you guys next time.